Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our session. My name is Robles. I work for the architecture firm Gensler. And today I'm going to talk to you about very little architecture. Today I want to show you a little bit around the way that we're thinking about game engines and their role in the evolving role of technology in the development of place. Because in our business, in everybody's business, in everybody's lives, the only constant is change. The only thing that we count on is that circumstances are going to change, that we're going to have to deal with a new set of variables every day. And in this constant changing, evolving kind of reality that we all live in our business, our clients expect us to be experts at everything. I mean, they want us to be aware of everything that's going on, all of the trends that are happening, how those trends might impact their business, and how we can adapt the work that we do in the pursuit of making the places we design on their behalves better. In this context, our peers are not other architecture firms. We don't look to our competition to establish the pace of our innovation. We look at a different set of peers to help us understand what the tomorrow is going to be. In this new context, these are some of our peers. Because we're not architects in this new context. We're developers. We have the same pursuits that they do, only we pursue them from a slightly different angle. And amongst all of these, there's a lot of household names, and there's actually a lot of clients of ours here. But there's only one architecture firm. And it's for that reason. We're developers. We're a technology company in this context. We understand and we pursue these things in the same way that all of you do. We get published a lot on this particular topic, on augmented reality. Because it's such an emerging field that where most are concerned with how they can use the tool to develop the things that they're designing, we're interested in how these technologies will impact the places that we're designing in the future. Because this is really, really, really true for us. We don't participate just to participate. We participate because we know, it's not just a belief, we know that unless we participate, that we'll be left behind or we'll be subject to the circumstances that somebody else has set up for us. So what are we doing and why are we doing it? On the screen, it's just a shot of the IMAX VR Center. It's a place that we designed for IMAX. It's the first for them of its kind. And there was a lot of development, conversation around how do you make something that's inherently isolating social? How do you make someone being essentially blindfolded in a sense, but in another sense not, right? Removed from their context? How do you make that something that you can share with others? And IMAX came to us for this because we had already been doing a lot of work in this field. We'd already developed our own VR platforms. We'd been, working with game engines for a long time. And we were already doing work for them, so it was just an ideal partnership for us. But it gave us a really deep understanding beyond the way that we were working about, what VR was in the built environment, for the purposes of engaging people. We've been developing on devices for a long time, like some less successful than others, but all significant in the sense that it gave us an outlook, it gave us a point of view, a perspective on the way that these things were going to impact our field of practice. VR for us at this point is a known. Like we know it. Right now, our biggest task is maturing this technology and getting it to the point where everybody understands how easy it is to access, what the power of it is, And getting a 5,600 person firm, design firm, to understand they have access to it and that it's a necessity now. It's no longer an option. It's not a bell, it's not a whistle. It is the core of our ability to communicate the experience of being in space, in place. Augmented reality for us is really where we're focusing our visualization resources, thinking, forecasting, future vision. The idea for us that you can now consume information ambiently, that you can leverage that information in the pursuit of accomplishing something specific. And we understand that just like VR, just like AR, just like architecture, it's a blanket term. It isn't just one thing. Architecture for education is different than architecture for health and wellness. It's still architecture. The same thing with AR. It's the ambient consumption of information in context. But it's also, the overwhelming, the impressive, the slightly produced consumption of information for entertainment's sake, for experience sake, this idea that you can physically be inhabiting a world where these things are happening that you can only access through the use of a device. For architects, it takes on another layer that's more practical as well. This idea that you could be walking through a machine room, through a server room, through any kind of facility that requires some sort of maintenance or that is generating some sort of information, that you can visually consume that information and understand when that valve was serviced last, what the reading is from that valve, when it's scheduled to be replaced or serviced. All of those things, this ability to capture information ambiently, that information needs to be generated. And so we jump from augmented reality to the Internet of Things. Because the information that's being generated by all of these devices, printed barcodes, or that it needs to be captured, it needs to be harnessed. It's actually what's feeding this visual consumption. You need a data source. And for us, it's helping us do things like build smarter places, improve the places that we're building, capture the information that those places are generating, use that information that we're capturing in the pursuit of improving that place, but also the other places we're designing in the future. The Internet of Things is like the nerve endings, the fingertips. It's how we're capturing the information that's being generated, and AR is like the eyes and ears through which we consume it. So if IoT is the nerve endings, the fingertips, AR is the eyes and ears, AI is the brain, is the way we're processing all of this information. Because if you can imagine that you're consuming all of this information all at once, all the time, you need a way to collate it. You would need a way to understand it. You need a way to use it in a powerful way. You need a way to collate it so it could be visually consumed. In the next 5 years, 300 million smartphones will have an onboard neural network. So the understanding that this neural network is in the pursuit of having one device able to talk to another device, able to talk to another, and through their collective absorption of information, allow us to make decisions that extend beyond just where we're at. I mean, a great example of that is driverless cars. Because the driverless car is not just the one car doing its one thing. That car's talking to all of the other cars that are on its network, and it's understanding where the traffic jams are, where the accidents are, where the roads are free and clear. And so a side effect of this driverless car idea is the fact that all of our roadways now are going to be used in a more effective way because it's going to decentralize these paths of travel that we're traditionally used to. These main thoroughfares that get super congested, that lately we've been using apps like Waze to help us get around. Now all of these cars are going to be enabled with that same thing, and they're going to be able to make better decisions, and as a result, traffic will go down gradually. It's not going to require a drastic change in infrastructure. It's just going to require the gradual implementation of these technologies in order to make them used more efficiently. And this machine learning, this neural network, it's not going to be limited to just these cars. It's not going to be limited to smartphones. Anything that's able or requires some sort of processing to do its job well is going to be part of this network. So if we've got AR being the eyes and ears, if we've got IoT being the fingertips and nerve endings, if we've got AI being the brains, we need to connect all of these. So Gartner's saying that by 2020, a corporate no-cloud policy is going to be as rare as a company that doesn't have the internet right now as at a website. A lot of companies, a lot of businesses have been resistant to moving their information to the cloud. And in our emerging technological future, data is really the currency. Because data is what's allowing us to do a better job at whatever it is we're doing. The more information that we can consume and catalog, the better we're able to make decisions moving forward. A lot of times they say that, history repeats itself repeatedly, right? Because we keep making the same mistakes because our judgment lapses as a result of not having access to the mistakes that we've made in the past. Being able to understand all of these things all at once, all the time, being able to make those decisions based on past events, being able to take all of that data that we're generating, that value that we're generating, and use it in the pursuit of improving our futures. That's where it is. And this idea that we have to have that data cloistered in our server rooms in our companies, it doesn't make any sense. It makes as much sense as keeping all of your money in your mattress at home. So the data centers become our new banks because data is the new currency. They're where our value is, and I don't know, maybe there's an idea that in the future you can be earning interest on your data somehow. Game engines are allowing us to take all of these things that are huge influences in our business, and they're allowing us to bring them together in ways that we can create new products, new services that allow us to progress our profession. This convergence of these technologies that requires something very specific. Because see, the way we see it, never in the history of modern technology has the architect, has the designer been more important to the future of technology. And that's because all of these technologies require one thing to be relevant. When you put them all together, they need one thing to be important, they need one thing to be powerful. And it's place. In the abstract, these technologies are great things, but their power is when they're applied in context, in place. And architects and designers have been developing place for hundreds of years. Our firm, for instance, working in 32 practice areas that include everything from the aforementioned education and health and wellness to things like tall buildings, retail centers, retail, airports, corporate campuses. All of these places where the combination of these technologies are really powerful. And we put them all together and we make them useful with game engines. Our collaborators in this field are many of the same people that are our peers. Some we can mention: Microsoft, Meta. Some we can't. These devices are so early, these technologies are so emerging, that it's something that we have to do mindfully, but as a result of our place as the center of all of these things converging, we're being reached out to significantly, and we're being exposed to all of the things that are coming up. We've tried almost every device. We've demoed almost every technology. And our footprints allows us to move these efforts all over the globe, to leverage all of our best thinking around these technologies. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how we're actually making this stuff real rather than just talking about it in the abstract. This is our open office in LA. And as you can see, it's got all of the things, all of the artifacts that are the drivers for why our place looks the way it does, except for the desk in the foreground, which, through the use of an AR device, is giving you access to all of the same things that you've got on the desks around you, but without all of the limitations of the artifacts themselves. The same thing that converged all of these technologies into our smartphones, into our cell phones, that same convergence is converging everything into our field of view. We're currently developing a platform, and this is just a mock-up, but we're currently developing a platform that's allowing us to spawn as many information delivery surfaces as we want. That's allowing us to bring models out into our environment. That's allowing us to leverage all of the IoT data within our environment in order to make the things that we spawn significant to the places in which we spawn them. And so if you keep thinking down this road, if you think, well, if I no longer need the limitations that these physical artifacts, the monitors, the telephones, lamps, calculators, all of these things, if those are no longer the drivers for the size and the format and the adjacencies of my workplace, what will the workplaces of the future look like? Will we need to work in a desk environment? Will we need to even go to work at some point? You know, this idea of remote telepresence, it's not, in our current thinking, it's not going to be your body being live scanned and showing up as a hologram elsewhere. You're going to have these avatars, which we're also experimenting with, that are scans of yourself that represent you, and that regardless of whether you're wearing pants or not, in the meeting, you're wearing pants. We're using game engines to put those things together, to develop them, to create this idea of being able to spawn all of these things. We're doing it on devices right now. We're platform agnostic. You know, we develop in Unity, and developing in Unity allows us to port out to whatever device we can, provided we have their SDK. But other things that aren't visualization, that Unity is, well, not directly visualization, but visualization is part of it, other technologies that we're able to use are letting us hire new kinds of people. So this is Artie, 26, single, employed, educated, looking for love, enjoys craft beer, coffee, Giants fan, the outdoors when it's sunny, travel, social events, and music. Over the past 4 months, he's been to 22,106 destinations, traveled 5,519 miles, consumed 170,000 plus images, consulted Twitter 60,000 times, 64,000 songs, tweeted 1,000 animated GIFs. The tall bars represent where he's spent the most time in New York, going from place to place, deciding where he's going to go next based on whatever he sees, whatever information that he consumes in the place where he is. The heat map of where the bars are located give you an idea of where he spends the most of his time. Artie's an AI construct, right? Artie's this experiment by one of our collaborators, Hexagram, who's developing this practical AI that's allowing us to use these agents as means to vet out ideas based on people's behaviors, consume information, collate that information, do great things. All of these technologies, with game engines as the core, is what's allowing us to adapt our business, to evolve our business, to pivot so that we don't find ourselves in a place where we're going to have to change course dramatically, where we can adjust little by little to the influences that are making our business, our environment, those changes happen. I want to thank you, and I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask some questions. And we've got mics, and if you'd like to, feel free to line up, and I'd be happy to answer any of them. Thanks. Nobody? Anybody? Awesome. Great. Well, then I thank you very much for attending. And if you want to follow up, I think you had my Twitter handle at one point. Thanks a lot.